One thing I thought about is I'm trying to reduce the things that make me unhappy in my life. One of the things that makes me unhappy is the forced, like, hello, I'm Joseph, and today is blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if we just, like, busted it in?
I'm totally for it. I'm here for it.
Let's bust it in,
as
dude.
long as we at least say hello.
Consider it busted. We're in right now. Hello, I'm Joseph.
Oh, hey, I'm Yazeed. How's it going?
We were just talking about what we're going to do for this episode, and you, Yazeed, have Square updates, which I do not know what they are yet. And for me, I worked on the WebSocket Relay stuff to make publicly available games. So I will talk about my progress and some discoveries that I've made there. But we should talk about Square first. Not because mine's more interesting, but because mine is not related to Homegames. It's more of like general stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So if people remember where Square is located currently is getting basically completely overhauled by me as it stands right now. The part that I was stuck on last time was the collision detection. Basically, I'm switching over to the inbuilt collision detector. Let me backtrack for a second. Homegames has an inbuilt collision detector. It's very useful for everything. But the only problem is Square needs to know the difference between two pieces touching and two pieces overlapping. Now, that's important because Square can't not have that in it to be a game. Otherwise, it is just you and another square moving across a surface, basically with arrow keys right now. Isn't a fun game. So anyway.
Wait, hold on. Is it because... So, for context, Square is essentially Frogger. You're trying to cross the street. Things will potentially run into you, and when they do, you have to die. You have to die. Right?
So, kind of. There's a couple different types of collision that need to be detected. There's the collision of a player moving into an NPC square. So, in this case, it's like in Frogger, if you try to jump into a bus, it doesn't let you. It forces you to wait, right? And that's mostly so that you don't just like accidentally like over jump into stuff. So that kind of happens. So it needs to figure out that the collision that's going to happen doesn't go ahead, and so you don't die. You just don't move anywhere. So like basically your movement request was canceled. There's another detection that needs to happen when you land into the destination square. So basically, if you get all the way across and you get to the like green block, if you get to there, good job, you won the round. We're moving you on to the next round. And so everyone gets bounced back. The NPCs were reset, changed however they need to be changed for the next level. All that stuff happens. And then the third type of detection that needs to happen is player to player. Basically, there's two kinds of like thoughts there. If you bump into another player, you shouldn't move forward. Basically, it's like if you were going to overlap with another player, you shouldn't be allowed to jump in that direction. So basically your movement gets canceled. And the last one is if an NPC square runs into you. So those are the four types of collision detection that needs to happen. So if an NPC square runs into you, you didn't move, and so you died, and so you jump back to the bottom. You get forced back to the bottom. Does that make sense? So it's like why that collision detection is like how that works.
Yeah, I guess I know why collision detection is important generally, but why would I need to care about the edges of your things touching versus overlap of your things? Like
because the collision detector, if their edges are the same, so like if the first one's end x value is 2 and the second one's start x value is also 2, it's overlapping with 0 width. Basically, like they exist in the same spot, but that shouldn't bounce you out. Basically, like you should have until the NPC square moves into you, that you should get bounced out, as opposed to like just you touching. And it's like that of like it's touching, but it's just edge work. It's just edging. Yeah, they're like it's just edging, and that's fine. You don't want to bust, but your edging is allowed. You know.
Got it.
It's triple N's.
Wait, what?
Triple N.
No nut November. Got it. Okay. No, that makes sense. So basically, you want to allow movement up to the edge of a thing. Basically, for like a modern game, it would be running into a wall and your guy stops at the wall exactly, not just before, not just after.
Yeah, you don't Ideally, you don't phase through the wall, although most video games do have you do phase a little bit through you do clip a little.
Yeah, I guess it's not perfect or whatever, but ours can be because it's 2D, so it's much easier than doing like a 3D open world or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, all I'm saying is that if we ever do make a 3D game and it has stairs, I do like when the animation changes to you actually walking down the stairs instead of you just like, walking downward slightly.
Totally. That's in Grand Theft Auto 4. That's how I knew that game was quality. When he even looks down at his feet when he's running up and down the stairs, it's next level.
I think you can really tell whether people put time into their game if that happens or not. Just like a sidebar, but like I think any modern game where they don't do that, they just don't care about the game. They're just putting that out there for whatever. They just want your money.
Totally. I have a hard time seeing myself ever do that in a game that I make for Homegames because Sponge taught me that is not the part that I like the most. I like games, but I don't really care much about coming up with ideas for them and like putting time into making them perfect. So you will never see stairs with like realistic motion in any Joseph Garcia product. I do not care that much. Just set your expectations low.
I respect it.
So did you find, like, were you fucking with the collision detection and it didn't work? Or you did and it worked, but you just need to do more stuff? Or, like, what's the thing?
So the collision detection works in that it tells me that things are touching. The part that I'm struggling with is filtering out just the touching. And I don't think it's a problem with Homegames. I think it's a problem with, like, my thought process on this. Like, I'm just not sure. I think part of the problem is I have a really hard time visualizing stuff. And so last time I thought I understood it because I saw two cars passing each other on a street. And I was like, I think I know how to do this. But now I don't have my two cars passing each other on the street. And I'm kind of wondering if, like, where I was headed with this is the correct approach or not.
Well, so you shouldn't...
So, yeah.
As far as I know, you shouldn't really have to care so much about the actual thing of collision. It is just, given the state of my game, which is, cars and a road and whatever, and this hypothetical thing that I could insert at some arbitrary point, would this thing collide with anything on my game state? So if I were to plop a boy right here, would he intersect with a car? And it returns like a list off of all the things that intersect with it based off of some very like simple just comparison math of the edges of the stuff. So whatever your like motion value is, whatever the increment is that you move into stuff, basically you would just check like the hypothetical next value against what's currently there and say, would I collide at this point? If not, then make me like the closest possible value without actually touching. So that's how you would get walking in like increment, walls right here, increment plus diff to the wall, but you're not through the wall.
Yeah, actually, I'm thinking back to something you said too about maybe putting an internal node, like an invisible node inside that's like the collided node. It's like if there's a collision with that node.
That's a hitbox, basically.
Like an internal hitbox, and make it like one smaller in every direction. Because then it's fine if the edges are touching, but if you increment one, like basically it's like holding a knife to your hand. It's fine, but the moment the knife goes a little bit into your hand, it's significantly less fine. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it really is all dependent on like the grid that you set things up on. It's the space between things and how much stuff moves when it moves. If you have like you have weird numbers and you move more than your grid, like if you move in a value that isn't like the modulus or whatever is not zero, like the remainder isn't, it doesn't, the grid space does not evenly go into the amount of space that you're incrementing in the motion, like that's when stuff gets fucking weird. But if you don't do that and you just use the built-in collision detection, it should be easy.
Yeah.
And if
yeah,
not,
I do think it is easy.
A small consultation fee of $100 every minute just to talk to me,
small
podcast is free
$100
talking
every minute. Yeah. This is office hours.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to be my friend outside of this, dude, you got to pay up.
God, I really do wish that the podcast just like explodes in popularity so that we get a little bit of that, like, do they hate each other secretly? But anyway.
Maybe we should really start hating each other. Maybe we should have like a big podcast feud. Like maybe you could smack me around a little bit, on camera. You can make a whole thing out of it.
I don't believe in violence.
Okay, we'll workshop it. But
all right, I'll call your dog ugly. I don't know.
That dude, she's not only that, she smells bad. She's loud. She's not the brightest.
She's a real sweetheart. No, she's doing her best. She just doesn't know what her best is.
It's true. I never taught her. It's my failure, really. But so speaking of getting the podcast to be super, super popular, I was kind of rejuvenated recently, re-energized with my hope for that actually happening, because I started focusing on the public game stuff. Was that all you had for Square before we go on to this, by the way?
Yeah, I think that's my goal is to get that out the door, though. So I would like to be done with Square 2.0 soon, because mentally it has been taking up space, and I've just been busy with other stuff. But I've constantly been like, don't forget this thing that you needed to do. But anyway, yeah.
One thing for that, dude, give yourself a deadline. Ooh. I tweeted about it after we did our public demo thing, basically like a solid stable version release. When we did that, I tweeted about how just giving ourselves a deadline really like forced me to do stuff, because I don't need to do any of this. You know what I mean? Like there's no incentive for it. There's no real drive. Like there's no external drive except for me, whatever. Like there's no driving force except for me. I mean, to do any of this shit. It's like we were saying about hackathons, and it's like no one made me do this. This is like a 4-year hackathon, but in slow motion, So why am I saying this? What's my point?
Give yourself a deadline.
Give yourself a deadline. It'll help. It'll help you remain focused, and it'll make you feel worse in the time when you're not doing something and you have a deadline, like that thing that we had in high school or college, where it's like, fuck, man, I should not be playing Rainbow Six right now.
I don't want that back. I like we're playing Rainbow Six until 3:00 in the morning and it's chill vibes.
that pressure made you a better person, probably. I don't know. But that's all I'm saying. Give yourself a deadline. But I was working on the public version, or like the publicly available game server stuff that we had been talking about, where it'll work exactly like Jackbox. At least that's the hope, where you go to Homegames whatever, put in a code, and then at that point you can either watch or play whatever game someone is running on their machine, potentially playing with other people in the same network as them, whatever. And so, yeah, I remember what you were saying before about how that's like the opposite of what Homegames is and always was, where Homegames, the intention is people are playing games with people in the same room, because the kind of human experience, the human interaction is kind of a key part of why these games are fun. They're not necessarily intricate or complex or whatever, the way that like a Call of Duty is. That game is fun in itself, whereas the experience is kind of the part of the thing. So basically, I still agree with that, 100% agree with that, like conceptually. I just think it's one of those things where we have to kind of freak it to make it more like approachable, make it a little bit more whatever. And so we say, hey, if I try to explain this, I go off on a really stupid, way too long explanation, and I freak people out. And it's like, oh, well, YouTube and like, JavaScript. Well, like, what if you made YouTube for JavaScript games and like a game engine and like all this stuff, and you run it yourself? It's like, it's so weird. And so if we just say, hey, Jackbox, go to this website, someone just has to be running this software. They just double clicked it, hit go. They have a code on their screen. You can go to this website, put that code on your thing. Maybe one day you can learn that, oh, if I'm on the same Wi-Fi, I could just go to this thing and it connects to them automatically. And maybe you can learn all this shit of whatever one day. But at the end of the day, the most approachable version of what we're building is Jackbox. Put the code in your web browser, play with me. Don't worry about it. And so basically my goal at this point, speaking of deadlines, is by Thanksgiving to have the spectator part of that working. So someone can go to a thing, put in your code, and just spectate. No input coming back through into the game server, just seeing it. And so that'll require me to go back to the spectator stuff that I had written a year or two ago, and then I had scrapped it. So to bring that back and basically reintegrate that with the stuff that I'm working on now, which is like this public server code stuff that I'm working on, and basically tying that together with like a piece of code that says, I'm here in this game and I'm not a player. I just want the data so I can see it.
That all makes sense. I do think that you said basically everything that I would think of to say at this point. I do still think home games should be played in a home with everybody around and just chilling. But I also think that you're right, and I think that that's a pretty good starting spot. So is the kind of like approach you're going for here is to like break up the move towards allowing like fully through the internet play to just being like, okay, so in the start all you can do is spectate? Or are you thinking more like Jackbox, where people in the room are playing and then the spectators are just like observing and then they can like vote or whatever, but like without that voting privilege?
Yeah, I think it'd be more like that, where there's no, my thinking of it is very much in terms of like the API and the best version of the API. And I think the best version of the API is there is a resource somewhere that just gives you a constant stream of game data, squished game data. It's like language agnostic. I don't give a fuck about JavaScript. I don't give a fuck about whatever. This is just bytes. If you can tap into this stream of bytes, you can render it however you want. Like, we have that SVG viewer that I built a while back as a test utility. So you can feed Homegames state into a SVG and just have that as like a static visual thing. So if you wanted to build like a SVG client that just rendered everything as an SVG in a sequence from the stream of data, you could. If you wanted to build your own just viewer client for whatever, you could. As long as you know how to render these bytes into whatever client that you're rendering to, it'll work. So my thinking is the simplest version of this API, just getting the bytes out and getting a simple version of our client. This is another thing I have to do, is refactor our client, because it is the one piece of code that I think has never been massively refactored since the beginning of this stuff. It is it is me tacking on code, like just line after line of code to this one giant file. And so now I'm going to just, split out some common pieces of that and like make the actual rendering part its own self-contained thing, the input part and all this kind of stuff. So it still functions as the web client today, but we can reuse that rendering part for this spectator piece that I'm building now, and eventually build, the input stuff as well. But the one of the things about this is that the spectator / play public client that I'm building is going to be different from the one that we have now for like the standard direct socket connection stuff, just because they have to be, like, technically they have to be, and conceptually they're different things and they might have different permissions and different kind of roles over time, so they should be different pieces of code that share the same pieces, if that makes sense. So so yeah, one of the technical specifics about the WebSocket thing, for example, is that the game server, my original intention was that this public relay thing would work just the same as an existing client today, and the game server would have no distinction between a public version and a local version of someone talking to it. But that doesn't work because the specifics of WebSockets, it requires like kind of a handshake phase where you say, hey, WebSocket, like, I want to connect to you. And then you say, you've connected to me. And then I say, okay, I'm going to send you a message. And then we can kind of send messages back and forth like that. But managing that connection and handshake through a proxy server sounds like a fucking nightmare. And I don't want to basically have this thing where you connect to me, I have to connect to this on behalf of you, and make sure that this whole process like continues to work correctly. That sounds like a mess. So
yeah,
I think it needs to be something different where it's just saying, okay, I know I'm talking to a relay server. I'm going to send it, input that I have for the game. It's going to send me output that it gets from the game, but I know it's a relay. It's not this like, I could be talking to anything could be talking to me. Everything is the same and nothing is different. Like that can be the case. So, that was a lot of stuff. Do you have any questions or anything about that before I read my notes and see what else I have?
Okay. Maybe you were explaining this and I missed it or I didn't understand it fully. So what you're building right now allows for both like me in my own home to run home games and then you from your home to spectate me. Yes?
Yeah, you're right. So I wasn't super thorough on what I'm actually building. So what we will have by the time I'm done with this is going to be the home games thing as we have it today, the dashboard, whatever. The dashboard will not be available through the proxy. The dashboard is only used to create game sessions, right? That's the way it is today. You can create and join game sessions from the dashboard. When you get into a game session, somewhere on the screen, I'm not sure where yet, if it's in the popover thing that we have for your settings or if it's in the frame of the game or where I display it, but will be the code for your game session. And everything that's not the dashboard will have a code for your game session. It's like seamless as possible. Games don't have to care about it, know about it, whatever. This will all be handled internally by Homegames logic. And it'll display that code somewhere on the screen. Some other person with access to the public internet, as long as this Homegames server is also on the public internet and broadcasting to a relay server, which will be optional, right, like turning on and off the ability to have public games, like that'll be a thing I build too. But so this third person or this other person over the internet who's not in the same room as me, whatever, will take that code that I send to them however. They go to homegames.whatever, put in the code, and then have the option look like just view or play. And the original version of that was just a button in the top of the screen. It said switch to spectator or switch to player or whatever. Where it's basically like, I drop in, drop out at any time. The game is just doing a handle new player, handle new whatever, but the game doesn't care. The home game system does, but like what I was talking about before with the abstraction stuff and like home games should know. The home games server stuff should know. The game should not. But anyway, so someone does that. It then just basically opens up the state of the game like anybody else would be seeing it. Like they can just see the game as it's happening over the public internet. And then eventually I'll have the input for that so you can actually play a game and, we'll have that kind of bi-directional communication stuff going. But at the moment, I just want to have just basically the game server coming to you.
I got you. Okay. And then what you're talking about with the proxy, that would be if Homegames, we hosted our own version for people to connect and play to.
So the proxy is basically like the Homegames managed infrastructure that broadcasts your game. Your game server is constantly sending out its data over a WebSocket to our relay, and our relay makes that stream available.
Okay, I think I understand now. Okay.
It's how I imagine Twitch works. Like when you have 1 million people on your Twitch stream, I imagine that 1 million people aren't getting a direct feed of your desktop monitor. Like you're piping that as fast as possible to a Twitch server, which is then replicating it across a bunch of different stuff, in different regions and stuff. So that is like the final version of this. My initial version is it's an EC2 instance that accepts WebSocket connections on a specific port. It'll do the broadcast. It'll accept incoming stuff from a home game server, and it'll send it back out to other stuff. So, at the moment I have a basic relay server. I can send text over it. So like, one client can receive a message broadcasted by a server through this kind of relay proxy, whatever we want to call it, thing. So my next step is basically just getting a single frame of a home games game to come over at the same relay. Once I can get that relayed and rendered on the client, then I basically just need to get all of them in a sequence rendered, and then I have a spectator client. So this is the kind of stuff that's like super fun to work on, and is also the stuff I really don't know much about. So that's kind of why it's fun to work on. So it'll take time, and I'll definitely run into shit. Like just the fact that I haven't touched Homegames web in so long, I was looking at it like, where does the socket connection happen? Like, how the fuck does this work? There were some parts where I was truly perplexed as to how the WebSocket communication was going on, which is, I should clean that up a little bit. And I will when I'm, like I said, restructuring pieces to kind of make it into a more cohesive thing of like, different types of clients and more reuse out of the stuff that we have at the moment. So,
yeah.
But yeah.
I do think that there is some beauty in us reconstructing how Twitch works in the same way we've been reconstructing how video games work.
It's poetic in a way. I don't know how, but it feels like it.
Yeah. I kind of like it. Your Twitch analogy also helped me as well. So hopefully anybody else who's listening to it, they'll be like, yeah, if you don't know what Twitch is.
Shout out to you for finding this podcast and not knowing what Twitch is. Or honestly, you're my mom. You are my literal mother. That's the only person.
There's no shot. Your mom has to know what Twitch is.
I was actually just talking to her about a week ago about what Twitch is. She started watching Call of Duty live streamers. Like that's her niche as of late. Yeah. So she does know what Twitch is.
Oh no. Oh no.
On TikTok, a guy was streaming Call of Duty. She thought he was funny, and then now follows him on Twitch. So she knows about Twitch through him, I guess. I don't know if she follows him on Twitch. It's a whole thing.
One day we're gonna like visit your mom for some reason, and we're just gonna like find her in like an RGB like streamer cave, dog.
I bought my graphics card, my previous graphics card, not the one I have right now. It was an MSI card, and it has a little door hanger thing that says "Don't bother me, I'm gaming." It's the cringiest shit ever. I should give it to my mom, dude, for her newfound personality.
Yeah, or one day we're gonna visit your mom and she's gonna be like hitting it in Call of Duty. She's just gonna be like ripping kids apart, talking mad smack. It's gonna be like, damn, your mom's a better FPS player than me.
Don't ever talk about my mom hitting it ever again, dude. That's
sorry. I realized after I said it that has like a lot of different like meanings. I should use like crushing it, killing it, murking them.
That works too. I like murking them.
Yeah, I also like murking them. Anything else you want to talk about for the relays?
No, that's pretty much it. I have a sample version of it going. Like I said, I can transmit data that is not Homegames stuff. So my current thing is getting it to transmit Homegames stuff. Before Thanksgiving, I will have spectators, and then hopefully before the end of the year, I will have actual play back and forth. And then from that point, like I said last time, before our loose summer release window, it is just like polish and then input stuff and some other minor things. But this is the last big feature I'm going to build before we release a final version, or if not final, but
hell yeah. I mean, if this doesn't work out, we can always make Twitch 2.0.
Yes, so dude. Yeah. Isn't Twitch like Twitch 3.0? I remember Tynan telling me about Justin TV. He was trying to convince me to stream on Justin TV like in 2009.
Yeah, I don't remember if Twitch is like the successor of Justin TV or Own 3D.
What is that? Own 3D?
I think Own 3D was like another competitor to Justin TV, if I remember correctly. This is like a long time ago. I don't remember super well. I know it mostly because like League of Legends, like high level players would stream on Justin TV or Own 3D, and then I think one or both of them died, and then Twitch rose up from the ashes. Yeah. And so now all of them were streaming on Twitch, and then like there was like that Mixer.
Oh yeah, the Microsoft
Facebook one, streaming. Yeah, and now it's YouTube gaming or YouTube gaming, YouTube streaming versus Twitch. So we'll see how that goes. Really is like two mega corporations just figuring out who they can play ads to. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I never got into watching people play games competitively. I am ranked in the top 4,000 in the world in Gears of War 5 competitive team deathmatch. In case you're curious,
that's amazing. I hate watching people play games on Twitch. I like watching people do anything else besides that.
I don't know. I never got into watching live streams in general. Like, it's cool though, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like a boomer because it's like, why aren't you just playing the game? You know?
No, for real. I don't like watching people play games on Twitch. There is a streamer. If you ever, for whatever reason, want to watch a Twitch streamer, there's one called German985. He's really cool. I don't watch like all of his streams, but he did one where he basically played The Sims in real life with his Twitch chat as the like player, and like he was the Sims character. He did like an America's Got Talent, but it was to find his like replacement Germa, which is so funny. He even has like other judges there, and it's like it is him with like a bunch of people who I think are like all actors, and they all get into it, and it's pretty cool. And his most recent one, he like plays a baseball game between clowns and magicians. So you might like that one. I don't know. It's more on the ridiculous side than the baseball side.
Nice. You see, that sounds cool when there's like a production around it, when there's like a thing around it. But when I went to visit Alex most recently, he was just watching some dude play Elden Ring after he had beaten Elden Ring like 12 times. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? We're eating dinner. You know what I mean? Like, this is...
No, I don't do that. I can't do that. I can't even watch people play like Minecraft, which is supposed to like one of the bigger streaming titles. Like, it's just boring to me. But I do like when people have like a production and like we're basically making a TV show. Yeah. How much, depending on how much Spanish you speak, there's another Twitch streamer called Ibai, Ibai, I think, or Ibai. But anyway, he does like Master Chef and like stuff on his stream. So, you know.
Nice. I'm sure it'd be more interesting if I don't know Spanish. I know like a little bit of Spanish, but that kind of stuff is more cool if you have no idea what the fuck is going on. You know, it's just like every frame is a surprise. You know.
It's also like Spain Spanish, which I guess is like some differences.
Wrong
I don't know
Spanish,
how that affects you. Wrong Spanish?
They say th. It's like they say their s sound is a th. It's weird.
Oh, like they say corazón instead of
corazón. Dude. It's fucking weird. Anyway, I have nothing else to talk about for home games.
That's fair. That's fair. We can call it here. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening. I'll still do my outro thing because Tynan needs his credit. Our music is done by our friend Tynan. He is Nitan on Bandcamp. That is Nitan, Nytan. We have a website, homegames.io, Twitter, homegames.io. Thank you for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.